how much of what's keeping this out of, maybe the mainstream here is because these psychedelics are not, they're not manufactured drugs. I mean, these many of these are natural substances grown, in the earth. So I'm assuming that there's certain powerful pharmaceutical organizations that maybe have a say in some of these things. I don't want to go too deep here, but is there something there that is keeping this down? And then if that's the case, do you think because of what you were just sharing here with 300 plus institutions and universities that we're beginning to see a turn? And I guess what does maybe the next 10 to 20 years look like if you had to forecast it?
That's a lot of questions, but I'm going to take them all. Yeah, I mean, you can follow the money in all sorts of different ways here. So let's talk about first the legal psychedelic, which is ketamine. So ketamine was created in 1970 as an anesthesia. By 1974, they realized, oh my goodness, people are having these dissociative experiences on this. That's not what this was made for. And they started studying it for mental health. But today, it's a generic. So there's no money in it for big pharma for ketamine to be widely used. There was a company, Johnson & Johnson, created a version of ketamine and did go through the FDA process for mental health specifically. But that costs like, I don't know, 700-800 times more than generic ketamine. So it's not used that much. But today, anybody in America can go to a doctor and have ketamine, a legal psychedelic, prescribed. So then your next question, though, and I'm going to go to the illegal drugs here in a moment. Your next question, though, is why? Why else would big pharma not want this to happen? Well, when you take something like ketamine, maybe up front you take 6 doses within 3 to 6 weeks. So maybe twice a week for 3 weeks or once a week for 6 weeks, something like that. And then after that initial 6 doses, maybe you don't take any more, or maybe you take them once a week or once every 2 weeks or once a month or once a quarter. But you don't take them every day. And because you don't take them every day, there's no revenue coming into whoever is selling it every day. So based on how our medical system works, there's not a lot of incentive for ketamine to be the drug of choice that's prescribed. And that's frustrating.
Powerful quote from the movie Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've seen it. It rings true to obviously the work that I do with men that are struggling with, an addiction or compulsion behavior with technology devices. The only 2 industries in the world that call their customers users are the pharmaceutical industry and technology. So I think it's just speaking directly to, right? It's like we don't want to cure you. We want you as a lifetime recurring revenue customer to our top and bottom line as a user.
That's a great quote. It's a great movie. And take it another step. I mean, there hasn't really been another option for people in 50 years in our country. So since antidepressants really came around, if antidepressants work, if somebody's listening and antidepressants work for them, fantastic. That's great. Stay with what you're doing. All the power to you. But for 40% of those that are taking antidepressants, they don't work. And then for those that, even if it does work, there's a lot of side effects that are pretty hard. Everything from loss of cognition to weight gain, gastrointestinal issues, lack of sexual libido. It just goes on and on. And it becomes and to try to get off of them, the withdrawal is brutal. Ketamine has really little to no side effects. There's a certain subpopulation, 2, 3, 4% who get nauseous when they're taking ketamine. There's some that have an increase in your blood pressure during the session, but these side effects that plague those who take antidepressants just don't exist in the psychedelic world, which is amazing. It's just kind of sad that people just don't know about this. And that insurance doesn't cover it, and on and on. It's not ideal with our medical system. So that's all legal psychedelics. Going to the illegal side, there's actually a great paper that's done. It talks about kind of harm to self and others on the left side, and it ramps like what's the most harm to yourself or others versus the least harm to self or others. As you would imagine, like alcohol, heroin, far left can do a lot of harm to yourself, can do a lot of harm to others. What's at the furthest part of the right side? Mushrooms. So when you talk about the safety profile of mushrooms of LSD, um, it's a pretty safe, relatively, it's a pretty safe medicine to experiment with. And then in between, just I'm not trying to Pollyanna this. There's things like ibogaine, which yeah, if you're taking ibogaine, there's a risk of cardiac events, and that's a much harder medicine. And there's a whole different medical process that you probably should look at. And then there's things like MDMA, which again, clinically amazing. But if you're taking it outside of a doctor's supervision, there's dehydration issues and other things that happen with MDMA that is just at least to be aware of. So those are some of the safety things that I think about in the world of psychedelics.